I got back a day early from my trip and noticed something weird. People I had never seen before snapping photos around my lakeside cabin. Thought maybe I'd been robbed. Turns out, Karen from the HOA had listed my cabin online as a vacation rental without asking, without telling, without owning a single inch of it. When I confronted her, she actually called 911 and told them I was trespassing on her guest property. Too bad the cameras, and the booking screenshots all said otherwise. The lake always greeted me like an old friend, quiet, unmoved, unbothered by the passing of days. That was the whole point of building the cabin there in the first place. It wasn't a rental, a showpiece, or a trophy. It was a sanctuary. No tourists, no subletters, no weekend noise machines. Just me, my dock, and the water that refused to rush for anyone. I'd left for a short trip, 3 days, nothing major. A family obligation 2 states over. I packed light, locked up tight, set the cameras to record, and let my neighbor Dave know in case of emergency. That was it. I didn't post on social media, didn't tell the HOA. No announcements, no out-of-town signs on the window. Just disappeared for a few days the way any quiet man does. But plans change. My sister's kid got the flu. The reunion fizzled out early. So I packed the truck, gassed up at a rest stop, and aimed myself home with a quiet sort of satisfaction. I'll be back at the cabin by sunset. Grill going, bourbon poured, feet up. The lake doesn't care why you return. It just waits. But the moment my tires rolled off the county road and onto my gravel drive, my stomach tightened. There were 2 unfamiliar cars parked beneath the pine canopy, an SUV and a beat-up hatchback. One had a sun hat hanging from the mirror. A folding chair lay tipped on the front lawn. A red Solo cup rested on the porch railing. And voices. Laughter. I slowed to a stop. The cabin door was open. My cabin door. I stepped out of the truck quietly. Didn't slam the door. Didn't say a word. Just walked the last 10 steps to my own front porch with that surreal, slow-motion calm that only shows up when your body knows something's wrong before your brain does. And then I saw her. Karen. Sunglasses perched high. Clipboard in hand. Cell phone already mid-dial. She stepped out of the front room as if she'd just finished a showing. "Oh," she said. "You're early." She said it like I was the one crashing a schedule. I blinked. What the hell is going on? 2 20-somethings, a guy in flip-flops and a girl carrying a tote bag, stepped out behind her, smiling awkwardly like they were checking out a listing they didn't quite qualify for. Karen answered with that rehearsed, breezy tone I'd heard before at board meetings. Just helping facilitate a short-term rental. This one was booked for the weekend through Lakeview Guest Management. Fully compliant. Nothing to worry about. I looked past her into the living room. My framed photo of my dad fly fishing sat crooked on the mantel. Someone's water bottle rested beside it. My own blankets, folded neatly, sat on the edge of the couch I hadn't touched in 3 days. "I didn't list this cabin," I said. Karen laughed nervously. "Of course not. The HOA listed it. We're helping generate revenue for the community." I stepped up onto the porch. "You entered my home without permission." She stiffened. "This unit was unoccupied and listed through our seasonal hosting agreement. And unless you're a guest, I'm going to need you to step back off the property." It took me a second to realize what she was implying. "I own this cabin," I said slowly. "I built it, paid for it, maintained it." Karen tapped her phone screen. "I'm calling the sheriff. Right now. You're trespassing." For a second, no one moved. Even a flip-flop guy looked uncomfortable. The air had changed. This wasn't just overreach anymore. It was a hijacking. I stood still while she barked into the phone. "Yes, 911? I have an unknown male on site. He's refusing to leave a property currently occupied by guests, possibly under the influence. Threatening language. Yes, Ridge Loop address. Yes, the rental cabin." I didn't shout. I didn't storm. I just stepped off the porch, walked to my truck, pulled my glove box open, and retrieved 2 things. My license. A sealed envelope containing the deed to my cabin, filed and recorded with the county clerk just last year. I leaned against my tailgate and waited. 10 minutes later, a cruiser rolled in. Deputy Chandler. Middle-aged, sensible, and thankfully not easily riled. He parked, stepped out, nodded to me, and looked over at Karen, who immediately launched into another practiced monologue. I called you about this man. He showed up unannounced, claimed ownership of the cabin. I believe he may be part of a break-in attempt. I have paying guests inside. I raised my hand like a student asking to speak. Deputy? I can make this easy. I handed him my ID and the deed. That's my name. That's my parcel. That's my house. He read the documents in silence, flipped through the pages, cross-checked the parcel number against his system. When he looked up, something shifted in his expression. Ma'am, he said to Karen, I'm going to need you to explain why this gentleman's deed shows he owns the property you claim to be managing. Karen froze, then stammered. That must be outdated. I'm sure the HOA holds management rights. Chandler raised an eyebrow. Does the HOA have legal ownership? Well, no, but we act on behalf of the community. It's part of a revenue initiative. Did the owner sign any agreement giving you access? She hesitated. It was assumed he'd be okay with it. No one was staying here. He didn't sign anything? She swallowed. Not directly. Chandler sighed. I need you to step aside, ma'am. Sir, would you like her trespassed from your property? I didn't answer right away. Karen stared at me, the clipboard slowly lowering, her authority draining by the second. I want to know who's been staying in my house, I said. How long this has been going on, and who exactly she's been charging. Karen glanced at her phone, probably contemplating whether she could delete a few things before I got hold of them. Chandler turned to the guests. You two, how did you book this place? The flip-flop guy said, through a site called ridgelakeretreats.com. Said it was a lakeside vacation cabin, part of the HOA's seasonal listings. I looked at Karen. That site belonged to you. Her face said yes before her mouth could catch up with a no. Chandler crossed his arms. Ma'am, you need to leave the premises. Now, if we determine you accessed this cabin without legal authority, we'll be following up with charges. Karen opened her mouth again, then stopped. She gave me a final, venomous look and turned to her car. The guests stood awkwardly on the porch, holding their bags. I nodded to Chandler. They can stay the night. No sense punishing them. He nodded. I'll take their info. You good here? I looked at the lake behind the cabin, still as ever, as if it had been watching the whole thing with quiet judgment. I will be, I said, soon as I change the locks. He grinned. Good call. Karen peeled off down the gravel road, her tires kicking dust into the trees. But that dust couldn't hide what she'd just tried to do. She'd accessed my home, listed it like it was hers, pocketed who knows how much money, and then called the cops on me for catching her. I wasn't just going to let that slide. She thought it ended with a false police call. She was about to find out that was just the beginning. The moment Deputy Chandler's cruiser vanished past the pines, I locked every door, shut the blinds, and sat at the kitchen table with nothing but my laptop, a legal pad, and a kettle of black coffee. I was calm on the outside, but every sip tasted of iron. Karen had crossed the line from overbearing to outright criminal, and I intended to document every inch of that crossing. 1. Rewinding the tapes. First stop, the cabin's motion-activated cameras. I'd mounted 3. One over the porch, one on the dock, one in the driveway. I plugged the SD cards into my laptop, scrolled back to the day I'd left, and hit play. Timestamp. Tuesday, 7:13 a.m. A silver sedan pulled in, Karen at the wheel. She hopped out, looked both ways, and walked straight to the porch. No clipboard this time, just a small metal box. She opened it, retrieved something, then stepped to the front door. It unlocked on the first try. She didn't pick the lock. She used a key. I rewound again, zoomed in. The keychain was bright red and stenciled with the letters HOA EBOX. The community's so-called emergency lockbox, the one meant for wildfire evacuations and first responder access, had apparently become Karen's skeleton key to my life. At 7:22 a.m., 2 young men rolled up with duffel bags. Karen greeted them like a concierge, walked them inside, showed them the thermostat, pointed out the lake view. She handed one a paper packet, house rules, no doubt, and left. 30 minutes later, she returned with fresh linens from her trunk. Then again that evening with grocery bags, chatting with 2 different guests. 2 check-ins in one day. On a weekday. My outrage bubbled. 2. Following the digital breadcrumbs. I Googled ridgelakeretreats.com, the site the flip-flop guest mentioned. The homepage boasted hand-picked lakeside getaways curated by local hosts and featured the unmistakable photo of my dock, my Adirondack chair, and my fishing pole propped against the railing. The listing read, "The Willow Cove Cabin, Hidden Gem, Sleeps 6, Pet-Friendly, Private Dock. Nightly rate $319. I scrolled, 26 reviews. Most recent posted that morning, praising Karen by name as the friendliest host. Each review had date stamps stretching back 5 months. That meant she'd been running this scam through spring, summer, and well into fall. Dozens of weekends while I thought the creaks in my floorboards were just temperature shifts. She'd pocketed the money, left the cabin tidy enough that I barely noticed, and shoved the cleaning fee onto unsuspecting guests. I opened the site's contact host page. The email handle, quellington@ridgehost.co. Subtle. The domain's WHOES record was masked, but a reverse lookup revealed the registrar's payment came from an account named WL Integrated Services, LLC. I cross-checked the Secretary of State's database. WL Integrated Services. Manager, Lucas Wellington, registered agent at a suburban address 2 counties over. Lucas Wellington, Karen's nephew, a 24-year-old digital entrepreneur featured once in the local paper for launching a drop-shipping empire. The nepotism was infuriating, but it also connected the dots. Karen provided the illicit inventory. Lucas monetized it. 3. Interviewing the tenants. I sent a quick group text to the 3 guests who were still in the cabin. I collected their numbers before letting them stay the extra night. I offered a full refund out of my own pocket if they'd sit down for 10 minutes and tell me everything. They were more than happy to oblige. Guest 1, Caitlin, the tote bag girl. She found a listing on Instagram, clicked the Ridge Lake Retreats link in bio, and paid via Venmo to KW Lake hosts. No contract, just a confirmation email. She paid $900 for 3 nights, cleaning fee included. She showed me the screenshots. Guest 2, Josh, flip-flop guy, booked through the website's Stripe checkout. He paid $650 for a midweek bundle. The receipt named WL Integrated Services, LLC. Guest 3 and 4, weekend couple leaving reviews since July. They'd handed cash to Karen in person. She showed up with a portable Square reader because Wi-Fi at the lake can be unreliable, then insisted on cash when the reader failed. All of them assumed she owned multiple cabins. All were shocked to learn mine wasn't hers to rent. I recorded each conversation, audio only, with their consent. I filed the screenshots, the Venmo log, the Stripe invoices, and the audio files into a folder labeled Karen Fraud Evidence. 4. The paper chase widens. Next, I dug into HOA meeting minutes, publicly posted in a password-protected portal. Buried in a September update, I found this gem under new revenue streams. Per President Wellington, exploring community-managed hospitality as a means of diversifying HOA income, leveraging vacant properties with owner permission. Owner permission. She had included a footnote, approval to be obtained via emergency vote if owner unreachable. I tore through earlier minutes. In July's meeting, a so-called temporary consent clause had passed 3-2, championed by Karen and 2 allies, citing urgent wildfire infrastructure funding. That clause gave Karen authority to rent any cabin deemed temporarily vacant. She disguised a personal hustle as disaster prep. 5. Banking receipts. I needed money trails. I called Jonah. He reached out to a forensic accountant friend, Sarah. Within 24 hours, Sarah traced a KW Lake host's Venmo transactions. At least $41,000 over 5 months, all labeled cabin weekend, lake stay, or simply camping debt. Stripe payments to WL Integrated Services totaled another $28,000. Most dispersed to Lucas Wellington's checking account, then funneled to Karen via Zelle. We subpoenaed nothing yet. Sarah pulled publicly viewable Venmo notes, plus bank statement screenshots Lucas had brag posted on Twitter months ago, #EntrepreneurLife. Passive income is the move. Dumb kid. I saved every tweet before he made his account private. 6. The emergency key revelation. I drove to the HOA office and requested an inspection of the so-called community emergency box. It was a beige keypad lockbox mounted on the clubhouse wall. Inside, nearly every cabin's spare key in neatly labeled slots. Except mine. Mine was missing. The label holder was empty, slot 22. Someone hadn't borrowed it once, they'd kept it. I asked Tina, the interim board president since Karen's ouster, if there was a log for key usage. She shook her head, mortified. Karen said logs were redundant. Only she and the fire marshal had codes. The fire marshal confirmed later he never accessed the box. That was another nail. Unauthorized key removal and false safety claims. 7. Connecting the nepotism dots. While Sarah traced money, I traced corporate filings. WL Integrated Services listed its business purpose as digital marketing and short-term hospitality. Its registered agent address? A duplex owned by Karen's sister, according to property tax rolls. Lucas's business used HOA photos, mine and at least 2 other cabins whose owners lived overseas half the year. I emailed those owners. One replied from Madrid, horrified. He thought the cabin sat empty. The other, a retired teacher in Arizona, said the last guestbook entry she'd seen in June was from K. Wellington, verifying property is secure. That was Karen's permission slip. 8. The outrage peaks. By now, my evidence folder bulged. Security footage of Karen using the emergency key. Screenshots of multiple listings with my photos. Guest testimony with payment proof. Venmo and Stripe totals. Tweets bragging about the income. HOA minutes showing the clause Karen sneaked through. Missing key from the lockbox. I labeled a final subfolder intent and deception. Inside, Karen's 911 call transcript. Chandler emailed it to me, where she called me a vagrant. Her claim we were community rentals. Her footnote about wildfire funds. It painted a single, chilling picture. She knew exactly what she was doing. Lying, profiting, and weaponizing authority. 9. Preparing the strike. Jonah drafted a cease and desist to Ridge Lake Retreats, WL Integrated Services, and Karen individually. The legal trifecta. We demanded immediate shutdown of listings, disgorgement of profits, and a full accounting within 10 days. Simultaneously, Sarah prepared a package for the county real estate fraud unit. Unauthorized rental income above $10,000 triggers felony review. We were already past $70,000. I contacted Deputy Chandler, asked if he'd take a supplemental report. He agreed, impressed by the dossier. We may kick this to detectives, he said. Lastly, I emailed Tina and the interim board every file. The subject line, evidence of systemic fraud. Within an hour, Tina called an emergency session. 10. Final discovery. Karen's booking calendar. Before Ridge Lake Retreats could go dark, I viewed the host dashboard, cached and archived org. Karen had scheduled future stays. My cabin every 3rd weekend for the next 4 months. And 2 other cabins weekly. Estimated income, $12,500 per month. She hadn't just dipped a toe. She built a full-scale operation around other people's property. I printed that calendar in color, circled my address on every date, and paper-clipped it to the front of the binder Jonah would hand the district attorney. My outrage had simmered into something colder now, resolve. She tried to gaslight me into leaving my own home. She'd exploited an emergency system meant for safety. She'd fabricated HOA authority, dragged strangers into my family space, and siphoned money into a nephew's side hustle. This wasn't an overstep. It was burglary dressed as community service. And the next step wouldn't be an HOA slap on the wrist. It would be criminal. The discovery phase was over. The counterattack was locked and loaded. Deputy Chandler's squad car had barely rolled out of my drive when I opened a fresh legal pad and wrote 2 names at the top: County Real Estate Fraud Unit and State Department of Consumer Affairs. Below them, in block letters, I added civil suit, conversion, and unjust enrichment. I was done playing defense. Karen had monetized my sanctuary while hiding behind an HOA letterhead. Now I would monetize her mistakes, legally, publicly, and permanently. 1. Alerting the fraud unit. Monday 9:02 a.m. I walked into the county government complex carrying a banker's box labeled unauthorized rental evidence. Inside, printed screenshots, guest statements, security camera stills, bank transfer tables, and a USB thumb drive with every digital file Sarah, Jonah, and I had gathered. Detective Angela Moore met me in a glass-walled interview room. She wore the expression of someone accustomed to fishing through tall tales, but as I unpacked pages of payment logs and the cached host dashboard, her eyebrows climbed. 70+ grand, falsified ownership, misuse of emergency keys, she summarized, flipping through a stack. That's criminal conversion, maybe burglary, definitely fraud. I nodded. She leveraged HOA authority to gain access. The key removal is documented on video. Angela slid the USB into her laptop, eyes narrowing at the Venmo screenshots. Transfers from a KW Lakos to Lucas Wellington every Sunday night. Regular as payroll. We'll start subpoenas on the bank tomorrow. What's next? I asked. She slid me a business card. You'll get a case number by afternoon. And, Mr. Hartwell, keep records of retaliation. This won't stay quiet long. 2. Auditing the HOA. The same morning, Jonah filed a formal complaint with the State HOA Oversight Commission. He alleged systemic negligence and potential criminal facilitation of unauthorized rentals, specifically citing the emergency lockbox breach. The commission's auto response came back within an hour, a rarity, stating an audit team would contact the Maple Crest Board for immediate document preservation. Tina texted me as soon as she got the notice. Tina, audit incoming. Karen's claws under microscope. Board panicking. Me, preserve everything. Keys, minutes, financials. Tina, doing it. Thank you. Jonah also drafted a preservation letter to all current board members, warning them that destruction of records would constitute spoliation. The board's treasurer, Diane, confirmed receipt and locked the HOA's filing cabinets in a conference room, changing the keypad code Karen once controlled. 3. Filing the civil suit. By Tuesday noon, Jonah e-filed our civil complaint in Superior Court. Hartwell versus Wellington, WL Integrated Services, and Maple Crest HOA. Causes of action: conversion of property, unjust enrichment, trespass to chattels, civil conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Damages sought: full disgorgement of rental profits, treble damages under state theft statute, punitive damages for willful misconduct, and attorney's fees. He also requested an injunction freezing Karen's personal accounts and WL Integrated Stripe balance until restitution could be calculated. We served Karen at 3:15 p.m. The process server later told me she attempted to slam the door but paused when he said court-ordered financial freeze. Her facade depended on money. Now the faucet shut off midstream. 4. Karen's PR counterspin. She surfaced on the neighborhood Facebook group that evening with a 600-word post. I've been selflessly managing short-term stays at select cabins to raise funds for wildfire mitigation and lake preservation. Every dollar was earmarked for your safety. Recent accusations are misinterpretations. The individual spreading lies stands to profit from lawsuits, not protect the community. Within minutes, residents peppered her with questions. Why was my cleaning fee deposited into your nephew's account? Wildfire mitigation? Show us receipts. Why did you list occupied cabins as vacant? Karen stopped responding after 10 comments. 5. The interrogation looms. Friday morning, Detective Moore called. The fraud unit obtained emergency subpoenas for Venmo, Stripe, and WL Integrated's bank. Preliminary numbers showed $74,860 in receipts, $18,200 withdrawn in cash by Lucas, and $22,000 zelled to an account ending in 4745, Karen's. Moore arranged formal interviews for Karen and Lucas the following week. Meanwhile, the HOA audit team arrived unannounced, 2 CPAs in suits lugging portable scanners. They seized minutes, bank statements, and electronic backups. Karen barged into the clubhouse mid-scan, demanding the auditors leave. They quietly showed her the state order. She threatened to call her lawyer. They advised her to do so, and reminded her obstruction could be charged as contempt. 6. Karen's community fundraiser, Defense crumbles. During her fraud unit interview, Karen produced a single-page budget scribbled in ink. Projected firebreak expansion, $100,000. Funds raised so far, $72,000. Detective Moore asked for invoices, vendor bids, or board-approved plans. Karen had none. Moore asked why 40% of funds transferred to her personal checking. Karen claimed reimbursements for guest amenities. Moore requested receipts. Karen had none. Interview ended. Moore's report concluded Karen displayed blatant disregard for fiduciary duty and deliberate obfuscation of personal gain. Lucas fared worse. When confronted with Venmo logs, he admitted Aunt Karen promised 10% commission if he built the website. He had no contracts, no tax filings, no occupational license. Classic signs of money laundering through a shell. 7. HOA faces the music. The audit findings landed like a meteor at the next public meeting. The lead CPA, glasses sliding down his nose, announced $74,860 in unauthorized rental revenue, unreported in HOA books. $8,700 in community improvements listed as reimbursed to Karen but spent on a spa weekend, Range Rover detailing, and designer patio furniture. Found on her deck, not HOA property. Zero evidence of wildfire mitigation expenditures. Not a single receipt for tools, permits, or brush clearing. Residents gasped. One elderly couple left in tears. The husband had donated an extra $500 for firebreak work after Karen's scare letter last July. Tina, standing at the podium, took a shaky breath. Given these findings, the board moves to terminate Karen Wellington's HOA membership for cause, seek restitution, and fully cooperate with criminal inquiries. Applause thundered. Relief, anger, vindication blending into one roar. Karen, seated at the back, shot up, face blazing. "You can't," she began, but her voice drowned beneath clapping. Director Jeff turned, gavel in hand. Motion carried unanimously. "Ms. Wellington, you are trespassed from all HOA facilities until further notice." She stormed out, cameras flashing. Local news had shown up after catching wind of the audit. Reporters shouted questions. "Did you steal from homeowners? Where's the firebreak money?" Her only answer was a slamming door. 8. Media exposure. The next morning, the regional paper ran the headline: HOA president accused of renting private cabins, pocketing $70,000. The article quoted Detective Moore, Jonah, Tina, and, most damningly, Lucas, who confessed on record that Aunt Karen said no one would notice. TV reporters filmed Ridgeview shots of my cabin, blurring the address. They replayed Karen's Facebook post side by side with audit findings. Viewers flooded the station's voicemail with their own HOA horror stories. Karen became the state's poster child of suburban greed. Real estate blogs picked it up too. Maple Crest's Zillow listings fell by 15% overnight. Prospective buyers demanded escrow clauses protecting them from past fines or hidden liens. Homeowners realized Karen had damaged more than trust. She'd dented their property values. 9. Civil court maneuvers. At the first injunction hearing, Judge Morales reviewed Jonah's evidence binder. Karen's attorney argued lack of malicious intent, calling the rentals a misguided charity effort. Morales lifted an eyebrow. Charity routed through personal accounts? Color me unconvinced. He granted our request, freezing Karen's checking and savings, plus WL Integrated's merchant balance, pending forensic accounting. Karen's lawyer tried a last defense. My client used funds to benefit the association. Jonah slid forward color photographs of Karen's brand new teak patio set, posted on her Instagram with hashtag #LakeLifeLuxury. Motion for full accounting granted. 10. HOA key access fallout. The audit revealed 3 other missing keys. One belonged to the Madrid's cabin. They were in Spain. Another to the Fosters, seasonal Arizona residents. Both discovered guest book entries written in Karen's handwriting, just checking safety systems, KW. Neither had authorized rentals. Both joined my civil suit. The HOA board installed a biometric safe for future keys, logging every opening with a fingerprint. Tina announced a new policy. Any emergency entry required 2 board members present. Video recorded. Homeowner notified within 12 hours. 11. Karen's last stand. Board appeal. Per bylaws, Karen had one chance to appeal her expulsion. She submitted a 5-page letter dripping with self-praise. My innovative revenue initiative, save your homes from wildfire danger. She cited climate change, rural fire load, and leadership visionary language. She ended with, history will remember who protected this lake. The board scheduled the appeal, but opened it to the public. 50 residents packed the lodge. 15 more listened on speaker outside. Karen delivered a trembling speech. She tried tears. I only wanted safety. She tried guilt. Do you think the county will clear brush for free? She tried fear. Insurance rates will skyrocket after this witch hunt. Then Jonah, acting as counsel for the residents, stood with printed stills from my security footage, the Venmo ledger, and the audit. He asked one question. Ms. Wellington, can you point to a single square foot of firebreak cleared with your so-called safety funds? She cannot. Appeal denied. Permanently. 12. The pressure peaks. Karen cracks. 2 days later, Detective Moore executed a search warrant on Karen's home. Officers seized her phone, laptop, HOA laptop, and a folder labeled guest waivers. Inside, nothing but blank forms never signed, never given. Facing felony fraud, Karen sought a plea. Her attorney floated restitution plus probation. The DA countered. Refund every homeowner, surrender any HOA role statewide for life, and record a public apology. If she refused, jail time remained on the table. Word leaked, and the apology video hit local news. Karen, in a drab sweater, reading from a paper, I acknowledge my actions were improper and harmed the Maple Crest community. No mention of me, no mention of theft. But viewers saw the resignation in her eyes. 13. Aftershocks. The civil suit moved towards settlement. Full disgorgement of rental profits divvied among victims, plus $15,000 punitive damages to each named plaintiff. Karen's Range Rover went on Craigslist. WL Integrated's site vanished. Lucas deleted every hustle hard tweet and posted a single line. Don't mix family and shortcuts. The HOA purchased liability insurance. They hired an outside firm to rewrite bylaws. They installed cameras at the clubhouse, not to spy on residents, but to spy on the board. 14. Personal victory without a shout. Throughout the barrage, I never raised my voice, never slammed a door. My weapons were paper, pixels, and patience. Karen's were bluster and borrowed authority. In the end, only one set wins in court. Deputy Chandler met me at the diner one morning, slid a folder across the booth. Official final report. Want a summary? I opened it. Complaint sustained. Charges filed. I closed it, slid it back. That's summary enough. Chandler chuckled. Ever consider running for HOA board? Not in this lifetime, I said. 15. The escalation ends. When the dust settled, Karen's reputation lay in tatters. Her bank accounts frozen. Her social standing evaporated. The HOA, once her stage, was now her jury box. And every homeowner she'd gaslight held a gavel. All because she thought a clipboard and a spare key outweighed deeds, laws, and boundaries. She forgot something simple. Paperwork may look boring, but it never blinks. The first camera crew rolled into Maple Crest the same morning the district attorney's press release hit the wires. Former HOA president under investigation for real estate fraud and unlawful profit from unauthorized short-term rentals. By lunchtime, every local outlet had the headline pinned to their front pages. HOA president rents out private cabin without owner's consent. My inbox exploded with interview requests, but I declined them all. I did not need airtime. The facts spoke loud enough. Still, the sight of satellite vans lining Ridgecrest Lane, the road Karen once swore she controlled, carried its own poetic justice. The reporters canvassed the neighborhood, microphones poised for outrage. They got plenty. Mrs. Alvarez told Channel 8 how Karen promised firebreak funds while secretly pocketing cleaning fees. The Rollins kids, proud in their soccer jerseys, explained on camera that Karen had once fined them for sidewalk chalk, but made strangers sleep in Mr. Hartwell's house. A retired teacher described how she'd trusted Karen with a spare key for emergencies, only to learn it was used for overnight guests who rummaged through her pantry. Each soundbite sharpened the narrative. A woman meant to protect community interests had weaponized them for personal gain. By midweek, the story jumped from local to regional news. A syndicated morning show labeled Karen the Airbnb pirate of Lake Willow. Social media piled on. A meme of Karen clutching a clipboard, overlaid with "this week on squatter hosts," went viral. The hashtag CabinGate hashtag trended for 2 days. I watched from my porch, a cup of black coffee in hand, while drones buzzed overhead, capturing footage of the now infamous lakeside retreat. Irony. The cabin Karen tried to monetize without permission had become headline decor, just not the profitable kind. Meanwhile, the HOA's interim board faced its own reckoning. The state audit had exposed gaps big enough to drive a U-Haul through. No keylog protocols, one-signature reimbursements, hush-hush votes at emergency sessions. Residents demanded a town hall meeting. Tina scheduled it for the following Thursday at the community lodge, expecting maybe 40 people. 100 showed up. They overflowed into the hallway, venting grievances, waving audit printouts. The lodge's oak beams reverberated with pent-up frustration that had simmered for years and finally found a vent. Karen arrived 15 minutes late, flanked by her lawyer, hair pulled tight into a battle-ready bun. She tried to use a side entrance, but a reporter's boom mic caught her at the door. "Ms. Wellington, did you falsify rental agreements?" She muttered, no comment, then slipped inside to a chorus of low boos. Tina's gavel cracked 3 times, and the roars settled into a tense hush. The agenda listed a single item: formal review of President Wellington's conduct. Tina opened with the audit summary, reading line after line of unauthorized rental income, misallocated funds, and vanished emergency keys. Each figure landed like a dropped stone in still water, ripples of anger spreading through the room. When she finished, she turned to Karen. "You may speak." Karen strode to the podium, clutching a stack of papers. She began with a syrupy, measured tone. "I initiated community rentals purely to build a wildfire defense budget. My nephew's company was simply a convenient payment processor. Every dollar was earmarked." A hand shot up in the audience. Jeff Langston stood, holding a screenshot of Karen's Instagram story featuring her new patio set. Was that teak furniture earmarked for the community too? Laughter and jeers erupted. Karen's voice shook. "Those were reimbursements for property staging. Every good host knows aesthetics," another resident interrupted. "Then why's the patio set on your deck, not the HOA clubhouse?" Tina raised the gavel again. Silence returned, and Karen pivoted to desperation. "Look, nobody else had the drive to generate funds. Insurance rates are rising. Wildfire seasons are worse. Someone had to act." But her defense collapsed under one pointed question for Naomi Foster, who stepped forward holding a folder of guest testimonials. "If you were acting for safety, why did you call the police on the rightful owner and label him an intruder?" Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No answer. The board moved directly to a vote. Ballots were passed, pens scratched against paper, and within minutes Tina announced results. 92 in favor of immediate removal, 3 abstentions, 0 against. Karen's shoulders sagged as if the weight of every forged document had finally settled on her spine. A security guard, newly contracted after the audit, escorted her out. No dramatics. No handcuffs, but the symbolism was enough. The door clicked behind her, and a cheer erupted that rattled the rafters. Yet my part wasn't done. Jonah filed a negligence claim against the HOA itself, not just Karen, arguing that lax oversight enabled her fraud. The board's liability insurer balked at first, then hedged. They'd rather settle than risk trial with cameras still circling. Negotiations began, and soon a fund was created to reimburse every owner whose properties appeared on Ridge Lake retreats. My share would dwarf the rental profits Karen siphoned, but I pledged half toward new security systems for seasonal residents. Real wildfire prep, not excuses. Public trust, of course, doesn't reboot with a check. Open forums became standing room events. Every bylaw revision was emailed in redline format for community comment. The lockbox was replaced by keyed cylinder safes, each access logged to the second, dual auth authenticated, homeowner notified by text. Tina instituted a rotating audit committee of volunteers trained by the State Oversight Commission. Karen's allies vanished from leadership. Fresh faces filled seats, many of whom had never attended a meeting pre-scandal. The cultural shift was visible in small, bright ways. Families who once rolled their trash bins back at 6:59 a.m. for fear of fines now stroll dogs at 8 without stress. The Foster's driveway chalk murals went unchecked and admired. Community potlucks spilled onto Ridgecrest Lane, where the new sign, the one Karen despised, now bore a plaque: private road, public lesson, transparency first. Home values, briefly dented by negative press, rebounded as buyers saw governance reforms and a neighborhood united. Karen's house remained on the market. First listed at $1.1 million, it sank to $895,000 with no takers. Realtors whispered about disclosure complications. Rumors said she'd moved 2 counties over, working remote and consulting. Lucas deleted his social profiles entirely, digital witness protection for entrepreneurs who get caught. As for me, I finally reclaimed the sound of nothing but water against dock pilings. One crisp evening, I set a log in the fire pit, poured a measure of bourbon, and watched the cabin glow warm from inside. No strangers sipping wine, no rogue renters rummaging through my kitchen drawers. Only Murph at my feet, tail thumping lazily, and the chorus of crickets undisturbed by emergency key intrusions. The lawsuit settlement eventually arrived. Full restitution, treble damages, and an official HOA apology letter signed by every remaining board member. I framed it not out of vanity, but as a reminder, boundaries aren't just fences. They're the contracts, keys, and accountability that keep a community healthy. When someone breaches them, the cure isn't louder rules, it's lawful daylight. Karen believed authority was a badge you print yourself. She forgot authority is really a mirror. Once it's shattered, everyone sees the cracks she tried to hide. And Maple Crest saw them, on the evening news, under CPA spotlights at the gavel's drop. By the time the last camera truck packed up, the story of the Airbnb pirate had drifted downstream to the next cycle. But inside our little cove, the lesson lingered clear as the lake at dawn. Leadership without transparency rots. Vigilance without paranoia protects. And no HOA bylaw outranks the name on a deed. Especially when that name knows how to fight back, quietly, lawfully, and for everyone watching. In the end, Karen didn't just step down, she disappeared. The final settlement was reached quietly. A formal resignation from any and all HOA involvement. A binding agreement never to serve on any housing board in the state again. And a public acknowledgement, signed and notarized, that she profited unlawfully from unauthorized access to community and private property. Her house finally sold, though far below listing, and no one really knows where she landed. Some say she's living with family 2 counties over. Others say she's consulting under a different name. But for Maple Crest, she's a cautionary tale, not a comeback story. My lawsuit was settled in full. The restitution arrived in 3 electronic payments, neatly labeled, neatly documented. Every dollar she'd siphoned from my property, plus treble damages and legal fees. Jonah's firm took a modest cut, but most of it landed right back where it belonged, in my account and in my control. The cabin was resecured with the kind of satisfaction money can't buy. The locks were replaced. No master keys, no community overrides. The emergency key program was scrapped altogether. Each home now had its own tamper-sealed safe box, coded and logged. No one, not even the president, could access it without homeowner consent and 2 verified witnesses. That change alone restored more trust than any speech ever could. The HOA charter was rewritten line by line. Every clause that once enabled Karen's overreach was slashed or restructured. Financial reimbursements now require dual signatures and scanned receipts. Rental policies? Banned. No cabin could be used for short-term stays unless the owner resided on-site. No more clever language about community fundraising. Just clean rules, plainly written. And the board? It didn't just shift, it evolved. Tina stayed on as president, but opened every committee to resident volunteers. Elections were held in the open, with candidate bios, debates, and real votes. An annual transparency report was published and mailed to every door, including mine. And for the first time in HOA history, the meetings weren't tense, they were collaborative. People showed up not out of fear, but because their voices finally counted. The community itself softened, too. Neighbors who used to huddle in corners, worried about fines for trash bins left out an hour too long, now chatted freely by mailboxes. Kids played in the cul-de-sacs again. Someone painted a mural near the old clubhouse. A simple landscape of trees, a dock, and a cabin under starlight. A tiny golden plaque beside it read, "Peace is earned." Naomi dropped off cookies the week the settlement closed. "They're just peanut butter," she said, "but they're guilt-free because no one's going to find me for baking smells anymore." We laughed over that for a while. And me? I finally got to rest. Not just sleep, but real, deep peace. The kind that comes when your property is yours again, not just in name, but in spirit. One fall evening, I pitched a chair on the porch, poured a drink, and watched the firelight flicker inside my cabin. No guests, no intruders, no HOA executive lurking behind a clipboard. Just my dog, my land, and my quiet. A neighbor strolled by, tipped his cap, and said, "Still can't believe you caught her listing your own cabin." I nodded. Still can't believe she called the cops on me for standing on my own porch. He chuckled. Won't happen again. No, it wouldn't. Because I don't just own the cabin now. I own the rules around it. The walls, the keys, the silence, and the certainty that no one will ever try to turn my home into their hustle again. Karen's reign ended with a gavel. But what rose in its place wasn't vengeance. It was restoration. And a locked door she'll never open again. Sometimes, the biggest invasion of privacy doesn't come from burglars or strangers in the night. It comes from the people who smile while holding a clipboard and act like they know better than you. Karen didn't break a window or force a lock. She used a key labeled emergency, a bogus title called authority, and a smile that masked pure entitlement. She thought she could turn my cabin into her personal profit center. She listed it, rented it, filled it with strangers, and when I dared to come home early, she called 911 and claimed I didn't belong. But Karen forgot something simple. Names aren't just written on deeds, they're carved in stone. And mine was the only one that mattered. She paid the price, not in drama, but in documents. Not in shouting matches, but in signed affidavits, timestamps, and a quiet flood of truth. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone step into your space, your home, your rights, your peace, and pretend they had a say? Has anyone ever tried to use what's yours as if it were theirs? Tell me in the comments. Because here's the lesson. If someone tries to occupy what's yours, don't yell. Don't fight in the dirt. Just show the title. Show the timestamps. Show the truth. And let the paperwork do the talking.